DMV area is really unique because there are only certain items that you can get here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. As I travel across this nation and try to find me a good cookie store to go to, I can't find snickerdoodles nowhere else in these United States except for here in the DMV area. I remember after I journeyed on in my freshman year, I went to Norfolk State University and found myself on a Friday night hungry and went to the carryout across the street from the campus and ordered chicken wings and asked for mumbo sauce. And they said, what in the world is mumbo sauce? You can only find chicken wings and mumbo sauce here in the DMV area. Not only is food uniquely gifted here in the DC area, but our sense of style is uniquely gifted. Only in the DC area will you find brothers wearing foam posits and Nike boots, and only in the DMV area where you find sisters dressing the way that they sit, because our style is so much different from all other cities all across this area. Y'all sitting here looking like you don't believe me. In my generation, you would only find sisters in the DC area wearing Parasucos. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I see somebody got a Parasuco remembers back. Only in the DC area would you find sisters wearing them Reebok Freestyle. Only in the DC area can you find hobos, shooters, We Are One. Only in the DC area can you find Sabiato, all of the urban attire that our young folks like to wear. But not only is that only thing you can find in the DC area, one of the other only things that you can find in the DC area is our sense of style in music. You can't find no GoGo nowhere else in these United States of America except for right here in the Washington, DC area. And tonight, this morning, I want to preach a little bit from the sermon, from the theme, Tell Me What You Want. Tell them what you want. It's an interesting thing when we listen to GoGo music because it's something that our young persons grow up on here in the DC area. Not just our young persons, young adults, and even our grandparents grew up on GoGo if you grew up here in the Washington, DC area. But the challenging and the interesting thing about GoGo music is that it only stays right here in DC. People from other cities don't understand it. People from other cities don't like it. People from other areas can't get with it, but we look back at them and say, we can't get with your dance music. We can't get with your hip hop. We can't get with your reggae. We can't get with your salsa. We can't get with your style, but don't knock our style because this is something that we grew up on. It's something about the DC area that loves and likes GoGo. And the interesting thing about GoGo is it is not a new form of music. It's something that has been going on for years and for years and for years and for years. There are different styles and different genres of GoGo music. If you grew up on the south side, you more favored to junkyard. If you grew up uptown, you like backyard. If you was an old head, you party with RE. If you were straight from Maryland, you like Northeast Groove. If you're with this new school generation, you like Reaction, you like TCB, ABM, MOB, you like all these different bands. But if you were old enough, like my mother, folks, and them, you must have grew up on Pretty Big Tony and them and Treble Funk. You must have grew up listening to EU, Sugar Bear, Al. You must have listened to all of these great folks that talked about GoGo music. But a couple of nights, I found an interesting article on National Geographic, and they talked about a man that was born August 22nd, 1936. August 22nd, 1936, a man who grew up right on U Street, Washington, D.C., at Washington Hospital Center, a man who grew up right there down the street from Ben's Chili Bowl, a man who grew up playing the guitar, a man who started his musical career as a jazz guitarist. This man who used to play with the Latino band. This man, you can find him any given day up the Carter Barron. You can find him any given weekend playing his guitar, shucking and jiving on the guitar, getting people moving and grooving. But this man who grew up in the church also played in a local Baptist church uptown. This man who was born in August 22nd, 1936. Today, this man who is 75 years old, this man grew up learning to play his guitar in the church. But this man left his local band and said, there's something that I like about the church, but there's also something that I like about the Latino groove. And so he took the percussions, the congos from the Latino folks, but he also took the church groove from the church because he liked to shout. He liked the way it connected him with his African heritage. And he blended it together and gave us something that he called GoGo. 75 years ago, this man, you all know him as the name Chuck Brown. They call him the godfather of GoGo. And Brother Chuck, in a recent article on National Geographic explained what it is about go-go. So he talked about any given night, any given weekend, you can find him partying somewhere where now he's been doing this for well over 30 and 40 years. And he talked about how the go-go was started. He talked about folks would come in into a gathering because they were following something. They were looking for something. They came in expecting something, and they knew when they leave, they were going to be filled with what it is that they were looking for. But he said, when you first come into the go-go, everybody is just standing around. Everybody is just chilling. Everybody ain't really doing nothing. They're just mixing and mingling. But then he said it's an interesting thing because the go-go music starts around the percussion session. It evolves and revolves around the drums. And he said anytime the drummer got on the drummer, he would begin to start warming up the drums. And as he began to start warming up the drums, you would hear the bass drum going. And as soon as you heard the bass drum going, everybody who was sitting down, laying around in the room, all of a sudden, that meant let's get this party started. And folks started to move to the front. And then you heard they added a little timbali to it. And they added a little, and then a Congo player would start to warm up. And all of a sudden, you would hear a nice little groove and a nice little pocket. And they just started grooving. They didn't really give you too much. And then all of a sudden, the band would start playing. It ain't really started yet, but everybody would come to the front because we're looking for something. We're expecting something. And so they would come to the front of the stage. They haven't said nothing yet. And then all of a sudden, you would just see people heads bobbing, people moving from side to side, doing the two-step. Hey, And that's all they would do. And it's an interesting thing right there, that when folks hear just that, how it's something that will well up on the inside of them, something that would get them ready to go to a place that they've never been before. Because it's something that Chuck said that connected them to the beat, that connected them to our African heritage. And he said when you heard the Congos, it just jazzed it up a little bit, just gave them a little flair. And then any band, anybody who's ever been to a go-go would know that the lead mic is the person that would get you involved. And so that the lead mic would do something that Chuck Brown took from the church, which is called a call and response. And all of a sudden, Chuck would come up there. He ain't played the piano yet. But he would just sit there and say, I say what? I say what? Who are you? Who are your crew? Said, where you from? I do it, y'all. Hey. And so, he started this 30, 40 years ago. And it's been from generation to generation to generation.